Hey, Aubrey, how's your week going so far?
Excellent. How are you? Except my toenails falling off. I was mentioning. I
That's
hiked the
the
Grand
big news.
Canyon and it was really rough on my body, you guys.
You guys, Aubrey and I are, we're active. We like to feel and think young, but right now I think both of us kind of feel a little old.
I
I
know.
want to
It's
say
the
it.
worst. I know. I keep trying to do things that would have been super easy 20 years ago. And I still think I feel young. I think young. So I think
Yeah,
I'm going to be fine. And then my
totally.
body rebels.
Yeah, I have to get another knee surgery now because I tore my ACL again playing basketball against kids. That's awesome. Okay, but you guys, we are not here to talk about old knees or toenails falling off, even though I do want to talk about that because it's gross and I
Yes.
love gross stuff. But no, today, guys, we are talking about the grossness of memorizing speaking answers.
I really love that segue because that is gross, right? You don't want to memorize speaking answers. It's not really gross, but it's a bad idea.
Bad idea, guys. We know that there are so many textbooks out there, especially by local publishers. So, like, if you live in Taiwan, a local publisher, or Iran, I know there's a lot of local authors doing IELTS books. I've seen a lot of these before where it's just like answers. It's just books of answers for speaking and writing, and online, right? And guys, you cannot memorize or use someone else's answer. And we're going to tell you why today with some entertaining examples. But okay, let's talk about first why we're mentioning this. There was a question in Facebook, right?
Yes, exactly. In our Three Keys IELTS Facebook group, one of our Three Keys students asked a very good question where I had every Tuesday, I post a brainstorm for students to give a sample speaking answer. And it's a great opportunity to think about how would I answer this in a high level way, a high scoring way, right? And this week's question was, what do you think is the most useful electronic gadget? And so students are giving these great answers. And one student asked, can you tell me the best possible answer for this question that you have posted? And so I let them know right away, change your mindset, right? There is not a
Mm-hmm.
best possible answer because you're going to answer with personal details and that will be different for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
There are definitely good strategies to give a high level answer,
Right.
but it kind of got me thinking. And Jessica and I said, we should do a podcast episode about this because I think students make assumptions and think about it the wrong way. And that can be devastating for your score.
Right, exactly. So it's not like you're not there's not a best answer, like best idea, like you if you talk about a cell phone, it's a band 9, but if you talk about a computer, it's a band 6. Like that's not a thing. What makes it the best answer is that you use great vocab, good grammar structures, have expressive pronunciation, and you accomplish those three things because you improve your English a great deal before the test, and you are able to express your personal thoughts and personal opinions in a fluent way, right? That's all a high scoring answer. That's the best answer, not the idea itself.
Right. I think that's the first problem that a student can think that there's one right answer that the examiner expects.
Right.
And if you don't give that answer, maybe you're going to get a lower score. I could see how this could really derail you. It could make you pause at the beginning to think, what would the examiner think is the best answer? That's the
Yeah.
worst thing you can do. Instead, you should be saying what comes to mind, what you think. The examiner is not thinking of the ideal perfect answer. They're just listening for you to do those things Jessica mentioned, right? Personal
Mm-hmm.
details, high level vocab, great pronunciation. They don't care what the actual answer is as long as it's on
No, man.
topic.
As long as it's on topic. Yeah. So yeah, there's a couple dangers there, right? If you are answering with what you think the examiner wants to hear, here's one way that could go wrong. If you think, oh, well, cell phone, like it has to be cell phone. You know what? Every other candidate that day is going to talk about a cell phone. So like that's the suffers dangers. You're just blending into the crowd. You are showing an average, idea that everyone else has. So like we say on this podcast often, if you want to impress the examiner in speaking and writing, especially speaking, then you need to stand out. And that is like, say something sort of wacky, as long as it's an electronic device. Like maybe you talk about your toaster, because you love toast. I mean, I could say that every single morning I have one piece of toast with peanut butter. Like that's just my go-to breakfast. I don't have to think about it. Anyway, I could give a lot of details about that, what I put on my toast, what kind of bread it is, what the toaster looks like, because it's true about me. When you talk about something true about you, you have more to say.
Yes. And your pronunciation will be better because you find yourself passionate about it. You're like, this is something I care about, or I think it's funny, or it's interesting. So my intonation is going to be automatically more native and natural.
Yeah. And you could be like, okay, this, maybe it's crazy. I know a lot of people would be like cell phones, computers, blah, blah, blah. But I want to talk about a toaster. That would be so much more fun.
Yes, I know. I would really love that. And it's true, if the examiner's having to ask the same question a lot, it's going to start feeling that some vocab that you might think is band 9 less common.
Yeah.
If you're giving the same answer, suddenly the examiner's hearing that over and over and over. And if you think outside the box and say something more specific to you, then you're going to give some vocab that the examiner hasn't heard yet that day. Band 9.
Exactly. Right. Because it cannot be less common if everyone is saying it.
Right.
The opposite of less common. It is common. Okay. So we're going to give you guys a few examples of how this could go wrong, memorizing or using someone else's answer to address this question. So what if you are looking at an old textbook with old answers, and someone may have written a model about an iPod, right? Like nobody uses iPods anymore. And maybe you're not even exactly sure what an iPod is, and you think it's the same as an iPhone. Like there are so many ways this could go wrong, right? Like using outdated material, someone else's idea. And then the whole thing is just wrong. The vocab is wrong because you don't know what you're talking about. And you don't have any personal examples because you don't actually know what an iPod is, let alone have an iPod to talk about.
Yes, exactly. Right. Or there's another one I was thinking about. If you, for example, read an answer about a blender, because someone's talking about how they drink protein shakes, so their blender is very important to them. So you think that was a high level answer. I'm going to share this, but you don't drink protein shakes. You don't really care about your blender. So you're trying to share these details. It's going to be a lot harder to remember these details, even if you've memorized that answer. And even if you are able to say it, it's going to sound rote. It's going to sound memorized. It's very hard to have that natural, interesting intonation and let emotion sound when it's not something that you actually feel passionate about or excited about.
Exactly. Like this is someone else's idea. You're not interested in this. You have no emotion connected to it. So it's not going to come out in your voice. Right. And maybe it's like you look at this example answer and you see interesting vocab, blender, protein, shake, and you're like, ooh, that's amazing. I don't know what these words mean, but I'm going to say them. But you're probably going to say them wrong, right?
Yes.
And you won't have any follow-up details because again, you don't know exactly what you're saying. So many reasons. That was a great example not to memorize someone else's answer. Do we have one more example of a poorly chosen answer to memorize?
Yes, I love this idea because if I asked my 7-year-old son this question, I guarantee you that he would talk about his Nintendo Switch. It's a video game console that he's so addicted to.
Yeah.
But if, you had read an answer from someone who's a big gamer into video games, and you memorize that answer, but you hate video games, you're not excited about them, I guarantee you that's going to be a low scoring answer. Because it's so unnatural for you to talk about how you're excited about this video game console when really you do not agree with that. You don't feel that way.
And this could be a topic in speaking part 2. Can you imagine trying to talk for 2 minutes about something that's actually not connected to you?
No.
How are you going to fill
It's hard
those 2
enough when
minutes?
you are talking about something you're connected to and
I
excited
know.
about to fill 2 minutes. It's impossible if you're not. If you don't have personal details, it's so hard to fill that time.
Yeah. So using memorized answers, trying to copy someone else's idea. First of all, like, respect yourself and your own ideas. Don't be like, oh, my ideas are terrible, I have to use someone else's. So first of all, like, respect your own brain and trust that you're an adult with a life of experience and you do have interesting stuff to say. You've been alive for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. That's a lot of years. You have stuff to say, guys. But at the end of the day, if you are memorizing someone else's answer, it will ruin your fluency and coherence score. It'll ruin the pronunciation score. And most likely it will affect the vocab score because you won't have enough to say to add those details in that vocab. So guys, you got to practice yourself before the test, and don't practice with someone else's answers. You need to practice coming up spontaneously with your own ideas.
Yes. And another note on the vocabulary. I can imagine the student who asked this question thinking, okay, maybe I could answer about everything, but I feel like there's ideal slang or ideal idioms or ideal vocabulary that could be used for that answer. And maybe that's what they're asking for. I think that's another thing to note here is there's so much possible, right? There's so many different slang phrases and idioms that you can work into any answer. So if you only memorize 5 or 6 and think these are ideal and I need to use these, it's very unlikely that you'll get the perfect question for those.
Totally.
So you really need to have a wide vocabulary. You need to learn all these different phrases and the context for them so that you're ready for any question and not trying to fit just a few phrases into the questions you're asked. There just isn't ideal vocabulary for every IELTS test.
In our personal coach classes, guys, when we work one-on-one with students, I can tell if students are trying to shoehorn in vocabulary because, like, it doesn't always make sense with the answer, right?
Sure.
And students are always surprised. Like, after they finish answering, I was like, you were trying too hard to push in that vocab and it doesn't work. So it's never going to help your score, guys. So natural, spontaneous fluency, and you have to practice this a lot. It's not memorizing someone else's answers. It's you speaking English out loud as much as possible, even to yourself. All right, guys. So if you know someone that's studying IELTS or is preparing for any English exam, share the show, IELTS Energy, and remember to follow us, guys, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen, because we have some super cool bonuses coming up in addition to regular episodes. All right, awesome. Aubrey, thank you so much. Let's talk tomorrow.
Yes, I'll see you tomorrow. I'll see you guys tomorrow too.
Bye.